Hi everyone, this is Kona, and I'm going to talk you through just the basics of what you need to do to get started with Canvas. You of course can go deeper, but for now let's just go ahead and get started. So to get into Canvas, what you need to do, or the best way to get in, is probably just to go to that main richland.edu homepage, then scroll down and click on this Canvas link over here down on the left. Once you click on that, you'll be asked to enter in your NetID, which is just your normal Richland username and password. I already have this information entered in, but for you, it would be the exact same information that you use to log into your Richland email and to My Richland. So the exact same username and password you use for those things. Go ahead and click Login. Now, when you first log in, you should, in theory, have access to the Canvas instructor training and a sandbox course. Now, you might also have access to other things like the Adjunct faculty resources or things like that, but the main ones that we're going to be focusing on are the Canvas instructor training and your sandbox course. Now, if you do not have access to the Canvas instructor training course and the sandbox course, please contact me. It's Kona, K-O-N-A, at richland.edu, or contact Liz, which is ejackson, at richland.edu, and let us know that you need access to these two things. Once you have access, you'll be able to go through the Canvas instructor training, and I'll get to that in a different video. But what I really want to focus in on is just how for you to just jump in and get started. So log in, let's say you have access to your sandbox, let's just go ahead and click on that sandbox and get started. So the first thing you need to do, this is your pretend course. So the sandbox is where you will be building or adding the content for your real course that you'll be using for the semester. But no students will see this right now. This is just a place for you to play and to kind of get your feet wet, so to speak. Once you have things the way you like them in your sandbox, I will check your sandbox, make sure everything looks good, and then you can copy this over into your real course that you'll use with your students. So it's a sandbox just because it's kind of like a playground, but you can treat it just like a real course, but you will not have students in it. So once you go into this sandbox course, the first thing we're going to do is choose your home page. So go ahead and click Choose Home Page. And for most of you, for right now, you're going to choose syllabus. Now, in the future, you might want to do something different, and you might change your mind and change it to assignment list, but for right now, let's just go ahead and choose syllabus and click Save. Now, once you have that here, what you'll want to do is add your syllabus. So to do that, so we're now down here at the syllabus link, which is also now your home page. So what you want to do, though, is click this Edit button right here. So see the Edit button? Go ahead and click the Edit button. And this is where you can enter your syllabus. Now, some instructors will copy and paste their syllabus. So some instructors might want to just literally, so this is my syllabus. Oh, it says fall, but it's actually spring. And I haven't completely updated this. I'm just using this as an example. So I'll save that one right there. So some people might want to copy and paste this. So they might just kind of do a Control-A, which is copy all, and then select all, and then a Control-C to copy. And then come over and they might want to just paste it in. And so then if you scroll up, there's my syllabus and I just added it all the way into here. So some people might want to do that. If you do that, I'm going to go ahead and click Update Syllabus. Your syllabus will literally show up just like this in the course to students. So if this is what you would like, if you're okay with this, then here you go. Just copy, paste, and your syllabus is now in Canvas. Another way you could do this, and which is sometimes easier for students, and so now I'm just going to go ahead and delete this out of here, is to add the file to your syllabus on this page instead. So instead I'm going to put, here is the link to our course syllabus. And there we go. Please make sure to download and save this to your computer for future reference. Okay, and you might even want to put a little how to print. Okay, so how do we actually get your course syllabus here? Well, put your cursor, so kind of click where you want it to go, then come over to where it says Files and click Files, then click Upload a New File. So go ahead and click Upload a New File. We're going to choose the file. Then you just navigate your computer to wherever your syllabus is. So for me, it's in my Math 113, Spring 2008, and my Math Example Syllabus. Make sure you do not choose that Math Example Syllabus. That's the open working document. This is the regular document. So just in case you see that, make sure you pick the file that looks like that. Click Open, and then click the Upload button. So you should be able to see your file name right there, and then click Upload. And there you go. There's the name of your file. You can then, I'm going to bold this, and I'm going to make it 18 font. You could even change the color. Please make it a color that's not hard to read, or like, don't make it red. Red indicates bad things. We don't want anything bad. And then just click Update Syllabus. And so now, instead, when my students log in, they see, here's a link to our course syllabus. Make sure to download and save this to your computer for future reference. So here's the link. If the students click on it, you can see it's opening up right down there. And I click it, and it's thinking, but it opens. But so that's how your syllabus would look, and I already had it open, but it's going to reopen now. Just to show you that it really did. See, there we go. I'm going to enable editing, and there's that syllabus. Okay, and that was the one I was working on too. Okay, so that's another way that you can go ahead and add your syllabus. Some people actually put the link and then they copy and paste as well. For me, I like short and sweet, but it is completely up to you. So those are two examples. So moving from here, let's go ahead and do your gradebook next. So the best way to do your gradebook is to pull up your syllabus and scroll down to where you have your list of assignments. So, sorry, I'm scrolling. Okay, I'm going to start with a points-based gradebook. This is for example purposes. I actually use a percentage-based gradebook for my own class, but I'm going to show the points-based first just because I know a lot of people use points-based gradebooks. So what you want to do is scroll down to wherever you have in your syllabus whatever your assignments are. So I have 10 quizzes that are 15 points each, 15 discussions that are 15 points each, and then I've got my 4 projects that are 75, 100, 125, and 150 points. So for this example, these are my assignments. So once you've got wherever that's at in your syllabus, just kind of pull it off to the side, and then click on where it says assignments. So see where it says assignments over here on the left in your Canvas course? Go ahead and click on assignments. When you click on assignments, you'll see right now it says no assignments in this group. So what I would recommend is, first of all, just go ahead and edit this and make it whatever that first assignment group is. So for me, I've got quizzes. So I'm going to call this group quizzes. So remember, back here, I've got quizzes, and they're 15 points each, right? Well, I'm just creating that assignment group right now. To actually add an assignment, now that I've got the group, so the group is just kind of the container, almost like the folder that holds all of your assignments. What you would do next is then click this plus button, add assignments to this group. Now, even though this is a quiz, unless you are actually having the quiz done in Canvas, which many of you probably aren't, but if you are, then you would pick quiz. But this would be only if the students were actually taking the quiz in Canvas. Otherwise, if the students are taking the quiz anywhere else, so a different online system, they're taking it in paper on the class, anything else, you're actually going to keep this as an assignment. And then I'm just going to call this quiz 1. I'm going to set a due date, because for many of you, you do know the due date. And my first due date, let's see, class starts on the 16th. My first due date for this one is the 21st. And it's worth 15 points. And I'm going to go ahead and save and publish that. So there you go. So now I've got my quiz 1, my due date, and then it's worth 15 points. I could then click here again, and I've got quiz 2, select the due date, In this case, let's see, it was 21st, so then it's going to be 28th. You can also set a time if you want, but you don't need to. And actually, I probably should, because actually mine is 11:59 p.m. But if yours is done in class, you can just set the date and you don't need to set the time. But just showing you can. And once again, it's 15 points, and save and publish. So you can kind of see this is how you would just kind of go through here and quiz 3. And when's that due date? And you can always come back in and change your due dates. You can always come back in and change number of points, everything that I'm doing, even the name. You can come in and change any of these things by just coming over here and clicking edit. So edit, and then you could change this to quiz whatever, or change this due date or the number of points, and then click save. You can also, since these, even though we're calling them quizzes, since they are assignments, you can duplicate these as well. So you can duplicate, and then you've got quiz 3 copy, then you can edit it and call it the 4th. Honestly, in this case, I don't think the duplication would probably do much for you. It probably wouldn't really do much good. But in case you wanted to, you can duplicate them. If for whatever reason you wanted to duplicate, you can duplicate them. You can also, if you need to, you can move them around. You can also move them around by dragging and dropping. So there you go. And I'll put it back to right. Oh, there we go. So you can drag and drop, and you can also use this move to. You can also delete. If you delete it, it really does delete it. And once again, you can edit it. And don't worry about the share to commons thing. You probably don't have that one. All right, well, I'm not going to make all 10 of my quizzes, but what I am going to do is also show you that I still have, remember, I've got those discussions and my projects to do. So what I'm going to do next is discussions. So for this case, I'm going to add an assignment group. I'm going to call it discussions. Click save, and now I've got my discussions group, and then I can click plus button. So once again, for me though, my discussions are actual discussions, but if you have discussions or you've got homework or whatever it is, if it's not being done in Canvas, it's always an assignment. So if it's not being turned in Canvas, if all of your assignments are being turned in the classroom or outside of Canvas in some way, every assignment you add here will be an assignment. The only way it would be a discussion is if you literally want the students to discuss something online in Canvas. Now, if you want them to do that, then that would be a discussion. But otherwise, if it's a discussion you're having in class, then don't make it a discussion, make it an assignment. So anything done outside of Canvas needs to be added as an assignment. If it's done inside of Canvas, an assignment would be something where the students could upload a file to Canvas. So let's say if you have a paper due, or some kind of response, or something written and typed up that you would like the students to submit to you, even a PowerPoint file, something like that. That's how you would use an assignment in Canvas if you wanted them to be able to upload it to Canvas. A discussion is literally where it's kind of like just an online discussion forum where you can post a topic and students can talk about it in Canvas. And a quiz is where students can literally take a quiz that you create in Canvas. And then external tool and not graded you wouldn't really use. But for now, mine really are discussions, so I'm just going to call this discussion 1. And my discussion 1 is due on the 21st, and it's worth 15 points, and I'm going to save and publish. And, oops, discussion 2, and 28th, done. And 15 points, and save and publish. Okay, here's something else. So I've been talking about saving and publishing. So these green little check marks mean that the students could see that these assignments exist. In general, I would recommend, unless you have a really good reason, like you don't want students to know about a certain assignment yet, even though it should be in your syllabus, so they should know about it. Let's say maybe it's an extra credit opportunity and you don't want students to see that there's an extra credit opportunity coming. So, or if you really just didn't want students to see something, what you can do is where this is green, if you just click that, see how it's now that little gray icon there, that's unpublished. So this one you can see is now unpublished. Now that one's unpublished, so the students could not see those even exist. That also means you can't enter grades for them because they're not published. So to be able to enter a grade for something, something does have to be published, and in order for students to be able to see it, it needs to be published. So in general, I would recommend having everything published, but for whatever reason, if you do not want them published, that would be how you publish them or unpublish them. It's just kind of, and you can go back and forth as much as you want. All right, so to finish out, I also have those projects. So I'm going to go ahead and enter in my project group. Projects and save. And then I'm going to add project 1. And let's see, project 1 probably wouldn't be due until like the 18th. And it was worth 75 points. And let's add project, that is an assignment. Let's add project 2. And go forward, that's pretty close to midterm. And actually, I think that's the week of spring break. So we'll go before the week of spring break. And right now, I'm just kind of going off the cuff with these due dates. That's just because I honestly haven't finished my syllabus yet for spring. But if you have your syllabus done for spring, which hopefully you should before you do this, then I would just go straight to your syllabus, and whatever your assignments are, whatever the point value is, whatever the due dates are, just add that information right here. Let's say that you're kind of like, well, I'm not exactly sure of the due date. Like I know I'm going to give these assignments, but I'm not sure of the due date. In that case, you can leave the due date off. I will say it's better to have the due date, and I'll show you why in just a minute. But in general, you don't have to have the due date. So I'm going to save and publish. Okay, so here's just an example. If I was doing this for real, I would have all 10 quizzes. I would have all 15 discussions. I would enter in all 4 projects. But you don't want to sit here and watch me do all of that. So we'll move on. The big thing here, though, is this is a points-based gradebook. So for this gradebook that I just showed you how to do right here, this is as if how you would factor the grade for this one is you just add up all the points that students have got, you divide by the total points possible. That's a point-based gradebook. But let's say you're doing a percentage-based gradebook. So in this case, the number of points don't really matter. What matters is the percentage. So for me, and this is how I actually do my course, quizzes are worth 35% of the course grade. So it doesn't really matter how many points the quizzes are worth. What matters is that overall, it's only worth 35% of the course grade. The same thing I've got 40% for my projects and 25% for discussions. So for this one, how you would do it in Canvas is a little bit different. Luckily though, since I already have it set up this way, all I have to do then is, if I want to switch this to percentage, is assignment group weight, and then click weight final grades based on assignment groups. I then say that my quizzes are worth 35, my discussions are worth 25, and my projects are worth 40. I click save, and now you can see 35, 25, 40. So something else with this, let's say you want to drop the lowest quiz score. You do have, let's see, edit. You can drop lowest scores, you can keep the highest scores, you can never drop a particular assignment. So you do have some flexibility if you want to drop scores or keep scores or something like that. But okay, so now that we've got these assignments, this is kind of cool because you've got these due dates in. So what this is going to look like when you click on home now is you're going to see your syllabus, because remember we set our home page as our syllabus, and then there's going to be a course summary. The course summary are all of your assignments and their due dates. So here's the date here. You can leave that default by 11:59, or you could change that default to whatever your class time is. It's just kind of up to you how you want to do it, and just let students know whatever it is. But it's kind of cool because as you add assignments right here in that assignment list, it will automatically create them in this course summary. So students will automatically, because remember, this is your course homepage. As soon as students click on your course, they'll see the link to your syllabus, and then they'll see here's all of the assignments and all of their due dates. That also means if the students or you are to click on your calendar, so first of all, there's one calendar for all courses. So it's not an individual calendar. So if I click on the calendar, and here in a minute, when it finally loads, sorry about that. So I'm going to go ahead and put my Jones Sandbox on and go to January. And so what will happen, and so by clicking or unclicking, so right now the only calendars I have are my personal calendar and the Sandbox. So you just do that by checking and unchecking things. But for right now, I just want that Jones Sandbox. You can see, here's my assignments, right, in my calendar. And you can flip through and it will automatically populate in the calendar for your particular course. So back to course in Jones Sandbox. So this is basically all you need to do. A couple house cleaning things. Let's go to settings. And something else you would want to do is enable a course grading scheme. Set the grading scheme, select another grading scheme, and pick the traditional one, which is the 90, 80, 70, 60. Unless you're health professions, then you would choose the health professions one. Click use this grading scheme. What this does is allow the students to not only see a percentage grade, but also an actual letter grade. And you can edit that if you have a different type of grading scheme. So that's one more thing you would want to do. Then you would want to go up to navigation. And this is where you just pull down everything you're not using. You are using attendance, you're not using collaborations, conferences, you're probably not using modules, quizzes, outcomes. You are using syllabus, not files, not pages. Oh, you do want grades, sorry. People, discussions. You do not need announcements, up to you if you'd like to use announcements. For right now, I'm just going to go ahead and drag it out. You technically don't need assignments. If you would like to have assignments visible to students, you can, but you don't have to. I would recommend home, people. If you leave people, that means students will be able to see the other students in the class, which isn't a FERPA issue because they are the students in your class and they can see each other in class. So if you want students to be able to see who the other students are in their class, which actually might help them if they're trying to do study groups or to help each other, you can leave people. Otherwise, just drag it down. For this sake, I like leaving people, so I'm going to leave it in. Grades, you want students to be able to see their grades, so if anything, you might want to move that up higher. The syllabus, you want to go ahead and leave the syllabus here, but it's also your home page, so it's kind of redundant. And then attendance will allow the students to see their attendance. So let's just go ahead and click Save. And so you can see now you've got home, grades, people, syllabus, and attendance. So you're probably wondering, what does my course look like to my students? If you click on Student View, this is how your course looks to your students. So when your students click into your course, they would see, here's the link to our syllabus. They'd be able to click and access your syllabus. They'd see this course summary of all of the different assignments and when they're due. The students could click on grades. This is the course gradebook for them. This is how they see the gradebook. They can arrange it by due date, assignment group, or by title. Now the nice thing here is students have something called what if grades, and that allows them to pretend like, well, what if I got a 10 on this assignment? What would my grade look like? Oh wow, I'd only be getting a 66.7. So what if I went ahead and got a 15 on this one? Oh, that still doesn't really help. Oh wait, oh good, now I'm back up to an 86.11. If I got a 15, I'm sorry, not on this quiz, I can get that. And so you can see that just by kind of playing around here, the students can see how their grade would change. So note, this is not your official score. Students do get that information, so they know it's not their official score. But this is an advantage to the Canvas gradebook, is that students can come in and play around with their grade and kind of figure out. So instead of having to come to you and say, hey, I'm not sure what my grade is, can you help me try to figure it out? Well, the students can come in and play around with their grades. I will say that once you start entering in grades, that grade will show up here, and then the students will be able to play around and see, well, what happens if Like I got a 0 on that, but what if my instructor let me resubmit it? Or I got a perfect on this assignment, but what about if I got a different grade on another assignment? So it's not that the students will always see this as blank. Once you start grading, it would start filling in, but then students could go ahead and play around with the rest of the assignments in the grade book as well to try to see, how their grade would change depending on what they got. The only other thing students could do for right now is click on people, and oh look, there's me. The student can't see the test student because the test student isn't a real student, if that makes sense. So that's why you're not seeing other students or the test student here. And then if they click back on the home, there's our home page again. Now for you can reset the student view, and then you can just leave, and it doesn't matter. Reset just puts, if you've turned in anything as a student, it just resets this, and otherwise you can just leave, and it's not a big deal. Once you leave, it puts you back in as your instructor view. This is where you can go to play around. Remember, assignments is where you change the gradebook stuff. The syllabus is where you update your syllabus stuff. Right now, you're not going to see anything for attendance, and that's just because there's no students to take attendance for. So once you actually have students, you'll actually be able to take attendance based on a list or a seating chart kind of view. But you can't see that right now because we don't have any students in this class right now. But trust me, it will show up, and it's very straightforward. It's pretty easy to use, and we have a training module just for that. So I think that's kind of your Canvas course in a nutshell. This is all you need to do in order to move forward and use Canvas for your courses. As you can see, I think we're at like 26 minutes, and that's with all of my extra explanation and showing you around and doing some stuff like that. So it really can be quick and easy for you to get this set up. If you have any questions or problems, please let me and Liz know. Let's say, for the sake of whatever, that you decide, hey, I like this and I want to use more features. Other features that you could consider adding would be files. So maybe you have some course documents that you would like your students to have access to. You might consider files. Could be something to where you could add. There's other things just to think about, but all of that information is in the instructor training. So the only other thing I'm going to look at really quick is, so courses will get you back to that Canvas instructor training. Now when you see this, you will see it in student view because you're a student in the training course and I'm set up as the instructor. So you can go straight to that getting started. And this will give you some more kind of a deeper level understanding. So what I've just done is kind of hit the highlights and showed you this is exactly what you have to do. So this right here is kind of like the icing. This is the extra stuff that shows you a little bit more of what you might need to know, or things that might help you maybe better understand using Canvas, getting help with Canvas, your Canvas dashboard, all of this type of stuff. Now, you do not have to go through all of these. What's recommended is Module 1, Module 2, Module 4, Module 5, and then just a couple brief little parts here of Module 11, and that's the attendance, because that shows how to take attendance, and the inbox, which I didn't really talk about, but this inbox is kind of like an email that works with Canvas, but that's kind of like a whole other conversation, so I won't go into details there. But there's the inbox, and then down here is how to actually enter in grades in the gradebook, because if you notice, I didn't actually go through how to enter in grades, but once again, I didn't want to spend too long with this video, so we're down. I now have kept it under 30 minutes and showed you everything that you need to do to get set up. But like I said, if you need help, please let me or Liz know. We're happy to help, and we are here to help you. We want you to be successful. We want this to be a positive, good experience for you and your students. So please let us help you with anything you're having problems with, you're having questions. We're here to help. So have a great day, and I'll see you in Canvas.